Alrighty, this is a very exciting topic for seniors, and the topic is when to take Canada Pension Plan. Now, we're going to cover this over two different YouTube videos. The first one, we're going to be reviewing some advice that I had given 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years this December. It was a Globe and Mail article where I was asked to comment on a woman who was single at 60, when she could retire, how to make that happen. And what I'm going to do is just kind of read out to you my part of that article. And what we will do is just kind of I'll comment on that as I kind of read through this with you. So this article was published December 1st, 2014 by Paul Atfield in the Globe and Mail. So this is about a woman named Kathleen Livingston. She thought everything was in place to ensure a smooth transition into retirement. That was until the 61-year-old and her common law partner recently decided to go their separate ways after 21 years together. And she was forced to completely reevaluate her situation. This is very common. Divorce is very common. We have a 50% survival rate. So if that was a sports team, you wouldn't maybe not cheer for that sports team. So it's a test. Not everyone can make it through. Health issues. There's all kinds of issues that cause divorce and separation. Not just people not getting along. So that's not uncommon. We see that all the time. Now she goes on to say, one of the things that I found shocking was that I expected my retirement to be with my partner. And that sets you up for many different assumptions. It's very true. I mean, planning, we want to act as a single unit, as a household. So now I've been disabused of all those assumptions and illusions. It changes the horizon and the landscape significantly. Absolutely. Despite the turmoil, Ms. Livingston is determined to put a positive spin on the new direction in her life. Love it. As part of a written agreement between the pair, Ms. Livingston had no claim to her partner's pension. She may have claimed a Canada pension, so that's something just to comment on. Although she did gain all the proceeds from the sale of their house in Regina, so typically through the separation agreement or the equalization payment, the lawyers figure that out, or you figure that out on paper. Definitely a much more amicable if you do figure that out. The big one for me is what's taxable, what's not taxable. So if he got all the pension, that's taxable. She got the home, that's not taxable. That'd just be a factor to make sure that was fair. But it sounds like she may be holding the non-taxable assets. But if you were Ms. Livingston's husband, that might be a question I would be asking for you. So consequently, she is left with a small portfolio split between mutual funds and a tax-free savings account. She's applied for and receives a small monthly stipend from the Canada Pension Plan, and she will get old age security when she turns 65. Not sure if she's applied for it or not. To complete matters further, Ms. Livingston has relocated from Saskatchewan to Ontario to be near to her siblings and mother, who are in poor health. But while her situation is understandably anxiety-inducing, it's far from unique. The gray divorce phenomenon is growing. The 2011 federal consensus shows that 21.6% of Canadian women and 18.9% of Canadian men in their late 50s are divorced or separated, the highest among all age groups. The need for planning ahead for retirement is therefore of vital importance to this demographic, particularly when the basic costs of living, mortgage or rent payments, utilities and food all fall squarely on the shoulders of one person rather than two. Here's the thing, says Jonathan Skeels, a CFP with Edward Jones. It's not that it will cost more living alone. It's that you will have fewer resources to cover your costs. Absolutely. So I'm just going to skip ahead to my comments, and we'll just kind of time test this. So the previous advisor was just saying maybe if you're able to continue work a couple of additional years, it can make a significant difference to how your financial plan will look and how long your money will last. And I completely agree with that. Commonly, what we're not doing is crunching the numbers before retirement of what we would just retire, and it's later on in years when those spending habits tend to rear their ugly head. So we really want to be careful in the beginning years. We want to know what our numbers are. They say the first 5 years are the most crucial because we could deplete too much in the first 5 years of retirement. So, Joshua Brown, that's me, a certified financial planner with Sun Life Financial in Whitby, Ontario. So I was with Sun Life Financial at the time, in Whitby at the time. Now I'm with PSC in Thessalon. It says broader questions need to be asked before making that decision. Absolutely. It's a kind of a blanket statement. There's a point where there's no more data to get, but there is a point where sometimes you need to sit down and just chat with this individual on an individual basis, and the spreadsheet just doesn't give us enough. So what I go on to say, we'll time test this bad boy, is I've sat down with people and their financial planner has said you definitely can't retire until you're 70. Has that person looked at their family history? Because if their parents lived until they were 75, do you really want to be working your whole life to have maybe 5 years of enjoyment? So I have seen that. Everyone in their families died at 60, actually, of a heart attack. And it's asinine to plan a 90 death date for that individual if they know statistically they may not make it. Their family history just is not there. So there are certain things that family history can rear its ugly head. Heart disease is one of them. There's some things to be aware of. I have a retired nurse in the family and some good physician clients I've had over the years. So health is a factor. And if you're struggling with your health at 60, that might be a point that maybe we're not going to make it to 90. So maybe you're aware that we're planning to 85, but you're going to enjoy life now and maybe retire a few years earlier and enjoy those things that your parents didn't and your grandparents didn't because they were working. So anyway, that's the power of the numbers and the power of math that I really love, being able to empower people. And quite honestly, I've helped some of my favorite clients in some cases retire 5 years earlier than they planned because they had more money than they thought and they were allowed to take less risk than they thought they needed. And that was an end game, less risk. And in retirement, the one individual, hope you're watching this, they have more than they need to spend each month too. So they retired earlier than they planned with taking less risk than they were on track for, and they have more money than we had planned out as well. So those are the ones that make me feel really, really good. So then Mr. Brown says someone like Ms. Livingston should also be considering the timing of her OAS withdrawals. So particularly once she starts back at work, he refers to any single client of his or another single client of mine. So they were over 65 and they were advised by an accountant to start taking their OAS. They did. And the whole thing was getting clawed back because they were making $130,000 a year. So the whole OAS was getting clawed back. They could have deferred OAS, so that's a thing now. You can defer OAS from 65 to 70. Yes, so if you've learned one thing today, that's maybe it. So I'll just move on. So if we're waiting on OAS, we can get more. I just mentioned that. I'll just covered that. So Mr. Brown also explains that someone like Ms. Livingston should be consulting a financial advisor to plan to move funds from her TFSA to her retirement savings, or vice versa, particularly given the amount of time she's been off work this year carrying out her big move from Regina to Saskatchewan. So what people do when they don't have any advice, they just do what they did before. They throw money into the RSP when maybe there's going to realize no tax deduction or a better tax deduction the following year. I've had clients come in who went into a bank teller and they advised them to put into an RSP, and their accountant comes in upset because they have no tax deduction, and they wonder why on earth was that done? So unfortunately, it's done in your best interest, but with not enough information that it's just not matching what you're trying to do. So putting money away is always a good idea. For some people, the RSP is not the best choice. The TFSA may make the most sense for you. So I just go on to explain that. And then the issue with Miss Livingston is that she's scared to use a financial planner, though, saying that her portfolio is too small to interest a professional advisor. But Mr. Brown says that needn't be the case, and that's true. So the more experience that an advisor has, the more education, the bigger the account minimum, typically, he says. However, I prefer to have a $100,000 minimum account. That's true. I took on a $7,000 account this year. It's true. And helped some new immigrants from Brazil start up a $100 a month savings plan. It's all true. And feel good about that. And they ended up buying a house later on, just before the market went through the roof. And if you're watching, I'm very happy to help you guys as well. In the $7,000 account, I remember who you were as well, a 20-year-old student that no one would help. And you came in and said, "Will you help me?" No one will help me. And I said to you, "Yes, I'm gonna help you because no one will help you." So Mr. Brown advises that someone in Ms. Livingston's shoes should be bold, like the girl who came into my office, and approach someone who they would feel would be a good advisor for them, even if she feels her portfolio might fall below the minimum requirements. My minimum was $100,000. I got paid absolutely nothing to help the person for the $100 a month. I shouldn't say absolutely nothing. I got paid not enough to make it worth my time if I looked at just that one case. But if I look at humanity and helping people, and that person's going to help someone else, then it's a win. And if I can change your life, if I have that power positively, then that's amazing. That's something I hold very dear, that have those capabilities. So I advised her to be bold and approach someone who they feel would be a good advisor for them, even if she feels her portfolio might fall below the minimum requirements. So yeah, maybe not the rootin' tootin' cowboy shootin' #1 advisor at the golf course, but yeah, you approach a young individual, maybe newer into the business, a young man or woman, and someone who can relate to you. And I can relate to people. I had a single mom who was raising 2 kids when I was little. You come in my office as a single mom with 2 kids and $50, and guess who's helping you, right? So just, fear is a big factor. They say the number one regret when we go into the old people's home, people are ready to slip away and end their life, is fear of what people thought, or fear of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing for fear of what people would think of them. So just go for it. Life is way too short. So fear is a huge factor with meeting people for an initial financial plan. Josh says, it's like going to a gym class when you're 12 years old, but now you're 60, and you've got to meet with somebody, and you've got to show them your whole financial health or physical health. Not everybody can do that. It's like, here's me. Here's the ugly me. I think it's the ugly me. Have a look. Tell me, when can I take CPP? And that's normal. That's my job. You're not ugly, you're normal. So come on in. When it comes to investing that money, that's Mr. Seals. We'll just move on. So Mr. Seals says that women who are single all their life are probably a little more aggressive with their investments because they've learned to look after themselves. So financially, I don't know, she says. I'm going to have some equity left from the sale of my house in Regina, and at least I will have something of a retirement portfolio, if not a lavish one. I'm an optimist by nature, so whatever comes my way, I'll deal with it. So the fact that she has some equity from the home, that could be used to do a lot of different things. And as well as looking ahead and caring for these family members that she was moving to Ontario to deal with. Do they have a will and power of attorney? Do you now have a will and power of attorney now that you're moving provinces as well? Wills and power of attorneys are provincially. So if you've moved from Alberta, for example, or Saskatchewan, and you're now in Ontario, you need a new will and power of attorney. If you had a will and power of attorney for property in Saskatchewan or Alberta, you're going to need a new one for Ontario. So in our next video, we're going to get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of when to take CPP,